I had to say to him, I thought all of you guys accepted me unconditionally for 50 years. I'm now realizing that you tolerated me. Hi, this is Mike Balaban, and welcome to another episode of BAMMER Tales. Today I'd like to tell you a story from my collegiate past, one of the last crushes I had on one of my straight friends, and how that's played out over a 50-year period. And it involves some of the issues of social mediacy and privacy and permissioning, as you'll quickly understand. Back in 1972, when I was an undergraduate at Brown University, I spent my spring semester sophomore year, after just having pledged my fraternity in the fall, in a program in Rome, Italy. When I came back and was readmitted to Brown in the fall of my junior year in 1973, the class after me had pledged or rushed our fraternity and been invited to join, and they showed up, and they were small in number, but very unified and led by an extremely handsome, very charismatic classmate. I'll call him Bob. And, I immediately fell head over heels in love with, infatuated with Bob. And it was hard not to. Everyone in the fraternity, even the upperclassmen, were drawn to him. And he was a leader. He was a bright, handsome party boy. He would end up with two personalities. When he got really drunk and stoned, his middle name, we named him after his middle name, would come out of his soul, and he'd take over his body. And he was pretty racy, pretty aggressive, doing all kinds of crazy things. And then the next day he might not even remember it, and he'd be back in Bob's body. I'm exaggerating, but not. In any event, I was in love with him, and he was my next door neighbor. And I did everything I could to be close to him. One night, we were out drinking and partying and getting stoned in his room, and everyone else left, and I passed out in his bed. And to be quite honest, I wasn't really passed out. I wanted to be next to him. I don't know what I thought would happen. Nothing did. But it goes to show you the lengths I would go to get close to him. In any event, it was 2 years of a very cyclical emotional cycle or roller coaster, being drawn to him, wanting something to happen, imagining signs that it might happen, waiting for the things to happen, which never did, and then realizing I was imagining and getting frustrated and angry and kind of pulling away, but I couldn't go anywhere. I lived next door, and it was 2 years of that. And finally, I graduated. I went on with my life. I got over the crush on Bob, and a couple of years later, while he was in business school, I visited him and another fraternity brother he was rooming with there. And I was just coming out to my family and friends and fraternity brothers in 1976. And I told Bob that I'd had this intense crush on him for 2 years, and it was over. And he accepted my being gay, without much problem, which I was thrilled at. And he even gave me a big supportive hug when that was over. Well, our group of anywhere from 6 to a dozen people have continued having reunions at Bob's family's weekend home in the Lake District in upstate New York every summer since then. And as the last 10 or 15 years have unfolded, which is 50 years later, we began spreading those reunions to 3 locations, not only his family's cabin, but 2 other weekend homes that other fraternity brothers had built and owned over the years. So we're very close. They know I'm gay. That hasn't been an issue. They seemingly accepted me with no limits, and I've been very proud of that. So jump ahead to a few years ago when I put up a post with a photo of all my fraternity brothers at one of the first reunions we had back in the 70s. And I told this story to my following, and I extolled Bob and his reaction and the big hug he gave me and how supportive he was, making clear he wasn't gay. Then in 2018, a kind of a brouhaha developed after one of our reunions when one of the fraternity brothers' wives was posting too much stuff on social media that irritated them. And then they found out about my posts on Instagram. And there was no problem when I'd posted it on Facebook. But on Instagram, that photo appears amid all the others I share, which are mostly of gay men, mostly with their clothes minimal, maybe wearing a Speedo, and then sometimes nude with, blurred portions of the shot. So by association, there's, someone might wonder, what if I'm on that page? Will people think I'm gay? Well, that's what ended up happening. When this brouhaha erupted, I ended up getting disinvited from the next year's fraternity reunion until this thing was resolved because of the soreness over it. And I was deciding what to do. Should I just say, fuck you? I don't deserve this. I've done nothing wrong. But I am close to these people. I do understand that it's kind of new to them and that they need to be educated. And so I agreed. I removed the photos in question. I'd already done that immediately when I heard of the reaction. And then the condition was that I have conversations with the host of each of the 3 reunion spots and discuss this and make sure we had a unified policy around social media going forward. So I spoke to each of the 3, and I got back on an even keel with all of them. And I expressed my concerns from my standpoint about how I was being treated over this, but I understood their sensitivity. And in particular, when I spoke to Bob, I had to say to him, I thought all of you guys accepted me unconditionally for 50 years. I'm now realizing that you tolerated me, that you accepted me with limitations. But the fact that Bob was concerned, even though he never saw the photo in question on my Instagram page because he wasn't on any social media, he just heard about it. But the fact that in his mind the fear would grow that people might think by association he was gay means you're not really entirely comfortable with me being gay, because if you were, you wouldn't care. If someone said you were gay, so what? You're now a grandfather, happily married 45 years with 2 grown kids, who are having kids of their own. What have you got to worry about? So we had this long conversation, and at the end of it, everything was fine. I've resumed attending the reunions. We're all close again. We've had a text chat with each other 2 or 3 days ago, including with Bob. But I had to say to him something which he agreed to. I said, Bob, this is part of my life story. Those 2 years with you were the first time that I had to gradually begin to realize I can't escape who I am. If I feel this way about someone this intensely for this long, maybe it means I'm going to be gay, inevitably and permanently. And that was scary and a first-time realization, and it's a key moment in my life. So I'm going to be doing a photographic memoir, a book. And when I do, I want to tell my story, and I cannot not tell my story. And that means you're going to be in it, whether I use a different name or not. But it would be a shame to not be able to tell my story with the images of the people that matter so much to me, including you. So I hope that by that time I do that, you will have grown and thought about these issues in such a way that you not only will tolerate the fact that I'm gay, but that you will be totally accepting and not concerned about how you may come across by being in a photo with me on a page full of mostly naked gay men. And I said, I hope you will grow to accept that. He said, yes, I hope I will too. And that's where we left it. So a very complicated issue. I wonder if any of you have stories like this. This has been my tale of coming to grips with those around me and their responses to accepting who I am. This is Mike Balaban. You've listened to another episode of BAMMER Tales. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube page and sign up for notifications of future upcoming episodes. You can also be part of the BAMMER community by going to my Instagram page at BAMMER47, to follow me on our podcast episode series, BAMMER and Me, or going to our website, BAMMER.co, with stories submitted by LGBTQ people around the world. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.